Hi, I'm Kate from dailytarotgirl.com and welcome to my Tarot Meanings Deep Dive series. Today we're going to be diving into the Emperor. The Emperor has to be one of the most misunderstood tarot cards in the deck. People think that he is stuffy and bossy and controlling, and I am here to tell you that he is more than that. He is a maverick, he is a rebel, he is a trailblazer, and he is very, very exciting. So, so get ready. You might want to grab a journal or a piece of paper and a pen because I'm going to be giving you some journaling questions to take away and ponder. But I'm really excited to dive into the Emperor today. So I want to start by telling you what the Emperor is all about. I'm going to tell you some key symbols to pay attention to, and then we're going to dive into three main realms of the Emperor. So, and I'm also going to tell you about his dark side too, which is fun. Okay, so the Emperor, and the image that you're going to see on your screen is the it's from the Universal Waite Tarot. So the Emperor is basically like a father archetype. So last week we talked about the Empress, and she's this sort of mother goddess archetype. The Emperor is like a father archetype. He represents stability, authority, sovereignty, power and control, stubbornness, and he is kind of a rebel. He's a little bit of a maverick. He likes to do things his way, and he lives according to his own set of values and rules. This doesn't mean that he is like a lawless individual. He's not. It's just that he has his own idea of what constitutes success, and he has his own kind of agenda that he follows. He's not comfortable following someone else's plan. All right, so I say that he's often misunderstood because he is so much more than just this stuffy, bossy father archetype. You know, he really is a true rebel and a trailblazer. So some symbols to pay attention to. Number one is the ram's heads on his throne. So the ram represents the astrological sign of Aries. And if you know a little bit about astrology, just think of, you know, the personality type of an Aries individual, and you can kind of apply that to the Emperor. So Aries can represent aggression, and they could represent war. I don't think the Emperor is necessarily a war-loving individual, but if you cross him or try to control him or dominate him, he will come at you. You know, he will really defend himself. The second symbol is the throne, and the throne just represents, you know, power and authority. I also kind of find his guarded expression interesting. He has this weird expression, and I can never really tell what he's thinking. And it's almost like he's attained a certain level of control and power, and he's kind of suspicious of anyone taking that from him. He does have a dark side, so he can be overly stubborn and inflexible and rigid, and the desire to have power and control over others is a manifestation of the dark side of the Emperor. The light side of the Emperor, the good Emperor, or what I call the wise Emperor, has power and control over himself, and he doesn't seek to dominate others. He is like a really great leader that you might want to look up to and that you would want to follow. But the dark Emperor, the unwise Emperor, the dysfunctional Emperor does not have that inner power and authority, and instead seeks power and control over others. So we'll get into that a little bit more as we dive into him, because I feel like that is his most fascinating aspect, is his dark side. Okay, so the first realm that we're going to dive into with the Emperor is the realm of sovereignty. So sovereignty is simply, you know, having power and control over oneself. And the healthy, wise Emperor has control and power over himself. he cultivates inner power and he has control over his own actions and behaviors. He also lives by his own value system and his own set of rules, not someone else's, and he does things his way. So a question that the Emperor has for you is, where in your life have you been a bit of a rebel? Maybe you're not a rebel in general, but there may be one or two key areas that you have been a rebel. How comfortable are you with self-governance? Or are you always looking for a set of rules or a formula for doing things? Because I think if we're honest with ourselves, a lot of us really crave some sort of structure or guidance when it comes to living our lives. And I think that that's why religion and certain spiritual movements are so popular, is because people like a set of rules, a set of beliefs, kind of a formula to follow for living their life. That is not what the Emperor wants. So the Emperor wants to discover things on his own and do his own thing and figure out his own kind of method for living life. He doesn't want to follow anyone else's template for doing that. So when you answer that question, how comfortable are you with self-governance, or do you like to have, some kind of a formula to follow, another set of rules? And it's okay wherever you lie on that continuum, but wherever you are on that continuum will show you how tuned in to the energy of the Emperor you are. All right. Stubbornness. That is the second realm we're going to explore. So the Emperor can be very stubborn, and this can sometimes be a good thing. So there is a time and a place where really digging in your heels, sticking to your guns, being really stubborn can really serve you. But then sometimes there's a time to be flexible. There's a time to listen to what others have to say and to really consider that as well. So the dark side of the Emperor is an Emperor who is stubborn all of the time and is completely closed off and unable to hear anyone else's opinion. He just wants to do things his way, and he doesn't care about anyone else's way. That is kind of the dark emperor, or the dark emperor. The light side of the Emperor is that he knows when to be stubborn, when to dig in his heels, and when to be more flexible. So how stubborn are you? Are you a generally pretty stubborn person or not? Or are you stubborn some of the time and not other times? And how has your stubbornness served you? So can you think of an example of when you were stubborn and you're really glad that you were stubborn in that moment? And how has your stubbornness hindered you? So can you think of a time when you were stubborn and now looking back on it, you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't have been so stubborn then. So the third realm that we're going to explore is power and control. And this is my favorite one to explore because this is so juicy and fun. So like I already said, the dark side of the Emperor is this kind of insecure, weak man who doesn't have that inner power and control. And so he seeks to have power and control over others. And then the bright side of the Emperor, the healthy, wise Emperor, is a man who cultivates inner power and self-control. So he doesn't seek to control others, but others naturally will be drawn to him because he emanates that power and control and authority, and it's very, magnetic, and people will want to follow him. All right, so let's talk about the dark side some more, because this is one of my favorite parts of the Emperor. So let's talk about how his dark side might manifest. So the dark side of the Emperor, that desire for power and control over others, can manifest as wanting to micromanage others. It can manifest as wanting to be oppressive, kind of wanting to be a dictator, and an obsession with imposing laws and mandates and policing everyone's behavior. And I think the time period that we're in right now is really interesting for observing this in people. I'm noticing a lot of people, and sometimes even myself, wanting to police others' behavior, and also noticing leaders becoming more like dictators. And so it's an interesting observation to see this dark side of the emperor being expressed in society as a whole. So a question I have for you is, what is your relationship with power and control like? When you're put in a position of authority, how do you feel? And if you've never been in a position of authority, just imagine yourself getting promoted at work, suddenly being the boss. How does that feel for you? Some people love being in a position of authority. Some people, being in a position of authority gives them a feeling of anxiety. Where do you fall on this continuum? So I personally hate being in a position of authority. It's the reason why I'm self-employed and I don't have any employees. I don't ever want employees. Sometimes I feel like I could use some help, but I'm like, no, I don't want to be telling anyone what to do. When someone else is in a position of authority over you, how do you react? What is that like for you? There's a lot of people who are very comfortable being in this position. They're comfortable in jobs where they don't have a lot of power or responsibility. Someone else is in that role and they just get told what to do, and that's like a stress-free kind of existence for them. And there's other people who really hate that. Like I myself hate that. Again, that's why I'm self-employed. Pretty much every job I've ever had, I've clashed with whoever my supervisor was or whoever my boss was. Even if they were a perfectly nice, reasonable person, I tended to kind of clash with them just because I guess I have problems with authority figures sometimes. Okay, so I guess a little story here. I once had a boss many, many years ago who was the perfect example of the dark, dysfunctional side of the emperor. So he was a guy who didn't have a lot of control over himself or a sense of, empowerment. I mean, I'm just guessing. That's just what I picked up on. He didn't have a lot of inner power, and he was obsessed with dominating others. He was obsessed with micromanaging everyone's behavior. He wanted total control, total power over everyone who worked under him. And it was really interesting because you could see how his lack of control in his own life kind of manifested in him trying to get that control in the workplace. It wasn't a lot of fun working with him. So the wisdom of the emperor is that we need to turn our desire for power and control toward the development of ourself and not the control of others. Now, oftentimes, and just notice when you want to change others or control others. Usually this comes from a place of fear. And when this starts to come up for you, you know that it's time to kind of check in with yourself and just observe, how you're using your own power. So when we focus on developing that power within us, as opposed to having power over others, we become empowered and sovereign and capable of forging our own path, charting our own course, and becoming, a powerful figure in our own right. All right, so in the comment section, let me know, what is one emperor-like quality that you can relate to? I can't wait to hear what you write me. So if you like this video, please click the subscribe button. I post these every week. And don't forget to give me a like, leave me a comment, and check out my website, dailytarotgirl.com, and I'm going to put the link to my site just below this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week.